Dr. Jazz.
But I did recently an interview with
Dr.
Tom
Jazz.
Christensen, who you know, and we spoke about you as
Oh
well.
yeah,
So you are kind
great.
of the same cohorts the last 30 years almost, right? Uh,
Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff together and known each
yeah,
other for a long time.
yeah. So it's kind of cool that we are doing this now as well. So, but I'll just
Yeah.
jump in. I've listened to your music for such a long time, ever since those. I remember I'm a guitarist, so when the records with Ben Monder came out, the early ones, I think, in this world, and I was like, oh shit, and Currents actually, yeah. Uh, I checked them all
Oh,
out and bought them, and listened to them, and I really like them, uh, and I want to start this talk with the latest one you've been doing, which is quite a huge undertaking, the Electric Miles project. And what's how come you decided to investigate that area? I mean, the arrangements are incredible, and but especially the repertoire and the band. I mean, what's the story behind it?
well, I've always been fascinated with um, a few of those recordings. Starting with "Bitches Brew" primarily. Although it's obviously well appreciated by musicians and fans. I just felt like there was a misunderstanding about it. That it was, or maybe because of the fact that Tio Macero, um, with editing tools, which were new in jazz at the time, obviously all the musicians kind of know that, but I feel like the kind of the general public didn't get a sense on what music there was happening inside of it at the
Hmm.
session, even before the editing. And I don't know if you've heard of these. It's on YouTube. Some of the outtakes
I really no.
from the 3D. Yeah, yeah. I'll send them to you. They're
Oh
really
shit.
great.
Oh,
You hear them working through things. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to bring some of that to light. And um, that I guess it was Bitches Brew, Big Fun,
yep.
in a Silent Way. Right around that 1969 up into 1974. Get Up With It.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, as a guitarist, you're probably way into that stuff, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that's
It's some crazy stuff going on there on those records. I mean,
yeah,
it's like, I mean, not the
yeah,
guitar, also musically, what the keyboards are doing, with all those players, and it's a crazy. Those
yeah,
are crazy records. Yeah.
yeah. And even what's the last one before his quote unquote retirement? The one in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
Agartha.
Agarth and
And
Pagaya, right? I think no, Pagaya. Yeah, I think so. Those.
so I've just kind of been fascinated with that, and so that led to. Well, I was on tour years ago in Germany for a few, I guess about 5 weeks, and I had a lot of downtime, so I just started transcribing
Oh wow. Okay.
Bitches. So I thought, well, I kind of have the lead sheets. I'd never really written much for big band up until then. I did some in college, and wasn't really interested. And something just something just hit me. And I said I had to do this. And
Yeah.
so just kind of started, and just it was a long for me. It took me a long time. I wasn't really versed in the tools of big band arranging, so I took
Yeah.
a few lessons with some friends who were doing that a lot, and just one thing led to another, and we did the first project. Um, I guess it took me about 4 years to
Sure.
kind of get it to where we could play it. And not being experienced as a big band leader, it was a lot of the first reading session. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, this is a complete
Shit. Yeah.
mess.
Yeah.
You know,
I
have
can
you
believe
had
that.
that
Yeah.
experience before?
I mean, yeah, I worked with the chamber orchestra, so it for me it was. at least you had jazz players here, you know, which kind of it's easier. Like I had only classical musicians, and that was like even some things that for us are natural, for them are not, right? So,
Of course, yeah.
but I know what you mean. Like after the rehearsals, I was like, fuck, man, well, what am I doing? I mean, musically was amazing, but I was exhausted. It's a lot, yeah.
So this is your music you had written for a chamber ensemble?
Yeah, I did like in 2011. I got a commission, and I wrote like I think it was an 18-piece from the Slovenian Philharmonic. So it was like cellos, double basses, and violas, violins, myself, and drums. So it's like, but it was
Oh,
really
wow.
tricky music, you know, all odd meters that I wrote and like long structures and in time, and then I played and kind of conducted. So it was like, oh man. But in the end, it turned out amazing. You know, it's just like the rehearsals. It's
Oh, I like to hear that. Yeah,
yeah. I'll send
yeah,
you a link. It's a nice one. But it's a big one. It's like I can just imagine you being in that position. You know, having the sound
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. I don't know what happens to us, but it just has to be done,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But
So
for
you
you, it makes
have
sense because you've done so many big bands, but in the band, right? And now so you kind of got the idea how it works, of course, through the years. And I think it's good that you've done
actually,
it. Yeah.
Maria, I used to play with Maria Schneider a lot, and we were very close friends. Kind of went to school together, and uh, we were we were in a canoe one day around 2015 or 14, and I told her, I said, and I was still playing in her band at the time, and I said, I'm thinking of arranging this music for big band. And her first comment was, well, Tio put that together. I said, oh, I know that, but I still want to do this. And she said, well, she kind of gave me her blessing.
Mm,
Not that I was asking for that. It was her blessing to give, but she just said, oh, that's great. Well, just remember one thing. And it made so much sense. She said, it's how you rehearse it.
mm,
Like if I didn't fully understand what she meant by that, but once I started to rehearse a band, I realized, even if you're not really sure what a brass section can sound like, or a string section or any kind of section, you put music in front of the people, you have to tell them what you want.
yeah.
You have to say, okay, well, I want this to happen this way, and maybe it's not idiomatic, but this is what I would like. And
Mm,
generally, the players will try to help you get that. And it could be that you're hearing something that, is a new way. I'm not saying I was. I was just looking for traditional brass voicings or traditional this or that. But what she was telling me is that if you have a goal in mind,
mm,
you have to just work with the players and sort of believe in what it is you put down and make it work. And I thought that was really good advice.
yeah.
Not that I've really used it. My stuff is, I think, pretty standard as far as like how the notes are voiced out,
Yeah.
But it really gave me um, uh, a a new idea about standing in front of a bunch of people and
Yeah.
telling them what to do. They're
True.
generally eager to help.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was.
Yeah. And she's the masteress of that, right? I mean, of this strange structures and voicing sometimes when I listen to her work, it's like really, wow, man. Clusters or
Absolutely.
whatever. It's beautiful. Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was it easier for you? I mean, obviously in the band, you had kind of almost like friends that you've played throughout the years, right? So that makes it easier. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it does. Although, you have to fund these projects yourself. You want to have as little rehearsal time as possible, so you're not leaning on your friends too much, and you're not leaning on people that you maybe don't know as well. So it's yeah, it's great to have friends that they're supportive, and everybody that I've played with over the years
Yeah.
in my projects have always been helpful. But you don't want to lean on people that most of these jazz projects and the ones that I do, there's not a lot of money involved. It's like a standard fee in New York. It's like you do it for this amount of money per day, and you work really hard from 10 until 7 p.m. It's a hard slog, but everybody's cool. But it is great in New York. I have so many friends who are great players and want to be involved in creative projects.
Yeah.
So in fact, we're just starting a band as a collective in New York. We're thinking of calling it the Jazz Manhattan Jazz Alliance or something like that, or New York Jazz Alliance, where it's a big band composed of players and writers, strictly for the purpose of hearing our music. Like we're gonna meet maybe 6 times a year, so that way you don't have to worry about leaning on friends or leaning on colleagues. We have a unit who I'm happy to play someone else's music, and they'll be happy to play mine. So, and there's no money involved at all. It's just people really wanting to keep projects in the hopper, and moving forward. So,
especially with large groups. I mean, that's like almost in the beginning. It's like, financially, it's like an atomic bomb almost.
It is.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna make a big band. Like, okay, good, a large ensemble, super.
Yeah. I mean, so many people. Wow, so many people are doing it too. I keep seeing new big bands popping up in New York and everywhere else. A lot of in Europe too. I mean, there's radio bands all over the place, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's just great.
Yeah, that's a nice
People
sound.
are still.
Yeah, a nice sound.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do number 3 as well, or?
I think I've maxed out on it. I think. I'd like to try to get more performances with what I have, because I guess at this point there's 14, 15 pieces, so we have kind of a repertoire to do, a couple sets. But as it's hard to get a big band concertizing, but we're working on it.
Yeah, it would be nice. Maybe try the festival season, in Europe. That's an option always to get. But it's hard to bring 14 people. That's a big one. It's a beast.
Quite a roadblock.
Yeah. Are you otherwise leading still smaller groups as well as a band leader, or?
I'm not as much. I'm not. I mean, I'm focusing on playing up in Rochester, where I teach at the school. I do a lot of performing up there with the students and with the faculty, but not so much in New York with my own thing. I just haven't really been focusing on that as much. But playing with as many other people as I can. Sure. Something, I always try to make that happen. But as far as a quartet or a 5-piece band, I haven't really done any of that. I did some writing. Last summer, I wrote a little concert of tunes for 2 horns,
beautiful,
trumpet and rhythm section, and we've done a couple gigs with that. But I was of the mind that I would focus on that for a little bit, but I just kind of got back into some other writing projects, and it's kind of taken up a lot of time. I got to get back to practice.
It's always the case.
School starts for me tomorrow. I have to practice today.
But I wanted to ask you, Charles, like we talked about Miles before, and was he one of the main reasons you started to play jazz, or what was for you the moment? Let's say, I guess mid-70s, or that you said like, okay, shit, I want to go that path, or do you remember? Or?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, when I was in high school, a senior in high school, last year of high school, we had a schedule that was very open, and we would go to my friend's house for lunch. I don't know, somehow we had this big hole in our schedule and would go get pizza and hang out at my buddy's house. And that's where I first heard Bitches Brew.
Mm.
So I thought, wow, this is some interesting stuff that I'd never heard before, because I was into listening to Paul Desmond and Dave Brubeck. And this was like, crazy music for me. I thought, but there's something about it that I immediately loved, the sort of the mystery, the simple things like the instrumentation, the fact that there was a trumpet and a bass clarinet. That was genius. That's Miles, right? He knew that would be a thing. So I didn't pay attention to it much in college, because I was learning how to play chord changes and, getting into bebop and Charlie Parker and Phil Woods and those kind of players, But it was always kind of there. And I went to college in New Orleans, and there was a lot of funky music and a lot of creative music in that realm. So I felt like I had always kind of had that in my background growing up, primarily down south. So it kind of made sense that music would sort of almost resurface later.
Sure.
For me, artistically, I guess. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. It's well, it did now. You did actually now the Electric Miles project, so it also makes sense. Everything. Around circle.
I actually, and when I was graduating from college in 1982, that was the year Miles came back.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went and saw him in New Orleans. And that was a completely different project. It was a band with Bill Evans and Marcus Miller.
Stern.
Yeah, Mike Stern. Saw that group. Great. But I haven't focused on any of the later. I call that the later electric period. He went on for another 2 years, I think. He died in 91, I believe.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, he did those You're Under Arrest records with Skull, right, and Decoy, and
right.
Those are cool. Then the later stuff for me, it's like kind of, I don't know, it got too cheesy almost, but yeah.
Well, I found it was a little formulaic.
Yeah.
I guess it was reflective of those times. You have to. I always think about what was happening. I really don't know about Europe so much, but in the U.S., Woodstock had happened. I think Woodstock was in July, and Bitches Brew was recorded on August 18, 19 and 20, I believe, something like that. So there was a lot of social upheaval. A lot was going on. Yeah. And it was a reflection of that sort of just the freedom to, to explore. And Coltrane had just died 2 years earlier. Yeah. So I think there were still repercussions in the art world about jazz sort of being leaderless, maybe, or something in a certain way. And we all the musicians, folks like you, know or knew about Miles's in the studio techniques where they would let the tapes run, which was very, very expensive back then.
Sure.
That was unheard of, right? I remember doing my first recordings where you still had tape, and you do a take and they'd say, "Do you want to save that?" You remember? I'm not sure what vintage you are, but they would say, "You want to save that?" And you'd have to make a decision whether or not those 7 or 8 minutes of tape, because it was so expensive, So, and they just let those tapes run, and it was just, he had such a luxurious deal with Columbia that they would work that way. So I think it was really reflective of in the arts in this country at that time. So when he came back, the world had gone digital, and it was just different. Yeah, like you said, it was just
Yeah, and I mean he had always that, you know, at least finding young players, that was his thing, and he continued that right in the 80s. It's just amazing the amount of players that went through his school. That's like
Yeah,
incredible,
absolutely.
you know. That's a huge
Absolutely.
contribution, I think. Yeah. But uh, you've been such a big part. You mentioned your first records, but I wanted to ask you, like, what was the main trigger for you to move to New York? I mean, it's a silly question. I mean, it's the capital of jazz, I guess, and for you know, you being like playing many horns and many different instruments, and uh, was a natural choice. But still, what was the main trigger you decided, and when was that?
Well, when I finished my undergraduate degree, I had had three teachers that had all gone to the Eastman School of Music.
Hmm.
Bob Shepard,
Ah, really?
Paul
Oh,
McGinley, and Rob Lockhart. So it was natural. I wanted to keep growing, and I felt like New Orleans wasn't really the place to be in terms of the music that I wanted to play, and the players I wanted to be around. So I kind of, moved towards New York by going to Rochester and being in a school where I was somewhat protected. Like a lot of my students do the same thing. They're not quite ready to move to New York. And matter of fact, Rob said to me, "Well, if you want to go to the real world, just go to New York. If you want to go to dreamland, go to Eastman." You know, and he was really right. So I wasn't ready to. I mean, I guess I would have survived somehow in New York had I gone straight there, but I'm glad I went to
yeah.
graduate school, met some new players who were head and shoulders above where I was. So I always like to surround myself with people who are, a lot better, and that's how you get better.
Yes.
Obviously, we all know that.
Sure.
So that made sense to me, and it was still a little bit daunting moving to New York. I didn't have any money. And it's so funny to hear these stories, the same story over and over
I
about
know, but yeah,
musicians coming to New York, and they
yeah.
scrape it. I used to play on the street, I used
Wow.
to play on the street with the band, and that was a great experience. We would play for two
Wow.
hours. We played giant steps for 20 minutes, and just
Ooh.
figure, it really made me a better player. So that
Sure.
was a great experience.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's how it happened for me. I'm sure it's a similar story for a lot of folks who moved to a major metropolitan area
Yeah.
to have just a wider range of all kinds of stuff. You never know what you're going to be in it. Playing a Haitian band one night, and you know, play a Carnegie
That's
Hall the
incredible.
next night, and the next night something else.
Yeah.
So just try to keep it moving forward. Yeah.
Who are the first connections you made in New York? Musical.
Let's see. Well, the first person I called to look for an apartment even was Maria.
Oh, wow,
We
really?
were
Oh,
we
okay.
were we weren't even that close in college, but I knew she had moved to Queens, near Manhattan, and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about moving. Can I maybe come out and see what your neighborhood's like and look for apartments?" So she was the first person, and
Mm,
I,
wow.
I knew her husband, John Fedchuk,
Yeah.
who I knew in New Orleans. Um, and I have to say that, let's see, I guess I'm kind of not remembering who I would have met, but it's interesting. I was having a conversation once with um, some people on a wedding band gig. And this one guy said, every connection I've made in the music business has been from bands like this. Because, like in LA, or I'm sure where you're
Yeah.
from, New York, the wedding bands are really good. There's a lot of really great players, and great players are going to be doing good stuff. So, but I guess, a couple of years I was here, and I'd always wanted to work with this producer, arranger. You probably know of Bob Belden.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean,
And
yeah, amazing. Yeah.
yeah, so when I think I might have called him or something and didn't really hear back, but a couple years later he called me for a session or two, and then he was great to work with.
Wow. Yeah. such an arranger. Yeah.
So, yeah, he was just so creative and open and loose, and he really knew that Miles stuff. As a matter of fact, I don't know if, maybe you probably know this anyway, but I think it was Columbia. Somehow he was asked to go into the vaults and piece together some of those later recordings of Miles, because he was the only one that could recognize those tunes. Like on Live at Fillmore.
Yeah.
Live at Fillmore used to just say Thursday night, Friday night,
Yeah,
Saturday
exactly.
night.
Yeah.
He went through it and he told them, oh, this is Pharaoh's Dance. This is Get Up With It, or this is that tune. So and this is before anybody else that I knew of knew that stuff. He just had such big ears, and he literally knew all that music just innately. So it was great to connect with him. But I'd already been here for a few years by the time that happened, I think. But and yeah, sadly he left us pretty early. So.
Yep. Yeah.
He left a great legacy of really interesting recordings, and
yeah, I love his stuff.
he approached working in the studio kind of like Miles, at least from what I imagine Miles was like in the studio. But yeah, Maria did a lot of great things, and Bob hooked me up with this Joe Henderson big band project.
Yeah,
which was
I saw
really
it. I wanted to ask you, about Joe. Yeah.
Oh, man, great.
Yeah.
Joe was a kind of a recluse. He didn't really talk to the band at all.
Wow.
He was in a booth by
That's
himself in this huge studio in New York, which is no longer there. He was looking for reeds, so he sent somebody out to the sax section to ask us if we had any reeds. So we're all throwing reeds at, oh yeah, Joe, take my reeds, but we got a picture at the end, but then that was it. He was not very talkative guy.
Interesting. Yeah, but it's a nice record. It's a beautiful record, that one. I mean,
yeah, I was lucky to be on.
Yeah. How did Currents happen, by the way? I mentioned it before.
Yeah, wow. As anybody knows about that record.
I mean, it's a beautiful record, right? I mean, it's some really nice music you wrote, and the band is killing, like
yeah,
your connection with Tim, who's on the Electric Miles as well, and Monder, I'm a huge Monder fan, so obviously I had those records. Like,
yeah, he's great. Yeah, well, we were playing in Maria's band together, me and Ben, and Tim Higgins. I didn't know that well at the time. I know him a lot more now. He was also playing in Maria's band a lot. I really admired his playing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to have something with him and something with Ben. And then Adam Nussbaum was always one of my favorite drummers. He kind of has that thing, that everybody loves. And let's see, that was 1996, the same year my daughter was born. And I'm not sure how I hooked up with Challenge or A. You familiar with Challenge or A Records?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I guess they're still around. I'm not even sure. But
Challenge.
Yeah,
back Challenge is definitely.
Yeah. So a couple of my friends had gotten licensing deals with that label. So I sent them something, and they said they'd put it out. So I was thrilled, finally to get my first project out. But I kind of realized that if I wanted to create, more music and get it released, I'd have to do it myself. And back then, people were still getting so-called deals with labels. That whole thing is kind of broken down now, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
I know,
I will not even go there. Like, it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, I wanted to keep the ball rolling. So that was, they actually said they wanted, or the word got out that record labels like that wanted like a standard, some originals, kind of. So I think there's a standard or two on there, and then some originals. So
Yeah.
and I think I played some oboe on that.
Yeah, I love that.
I was, yeah, trying to get that side going, and yeah. So that's how that
That's a
came about.
beautiful record. Yeah, I mean, it's still not, now you put it on and the arrangements are nice. I mean, I love those early records and in this world, and it's beautiful music you did. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, really
Thank you
nice.
very much.
Among your experiences, I wanted to ask you your story with Mike Brecker and the Queen Dectet. You're on that one on White Angles, and I love that record so much. Everyone who played with Michael, and especially in that group, I asked them how their experience was, and you being a horn player as well, how was it like how did you end up in that project actually, and how was it like for you?
I'm not really sure. I didn't really know him. Well, I'd only met him, I think once or twice. And I had a little bit of a connection with him. He worked with Paul Simon, the pop singer.
Yeah.
And Paul Simon put together a Broadway show. I guess it was around 97 or something. And he picked every player in that Broadway pit himself.
Wow.
And he asked Michael Brecker about an oboe player, and for some reason Brecker had some memory of me playing oboe, and being a saxophone player who could play oboe. So that meant that I had some sort of idea about how to play, pop music, and I wasn't a straight classical player. So I remember I ran into Mike on the street in New York. I had my daughter in a stroller, and I'm walking. I live very near my saxophone repairman, and Michael happened to be coming out of the shop as I was walking by, and I said, "Hey, Michael, man, thanks. I had just gotten a call, and they said something about Michael Brecker had recommended you." So I thanked him. I said, "Man, thank you so much. It's great that I'm going to be doing this show. I'm really very excited about meeting Paul." And I remember he said, "Well, at the end, okay, see you later." He said, "Well, good luck with Paul." That was his last word. I don't know. So a few years later, I guess it was about 5 years later, when they put together the Quintet, I was somewhat fresh in his mind. And honestly, I'd gotten a lot better on oboe in those 5 years. I practiced pretty hard and during those years. So I felt a lot better about my playing. And I felt like I tackled that project okay, at least. It's really hard music.
Yeah.
Really hard. Like looking at some of the parts, I thought, I'm not sure if I can play this, and it was supposed to kind of sound that way too, It's supposed to be pretty chaotic.
Tricky, yeah.
But he was just unbelievable to work with, as you could expect. I mean, did you ever meet him or play with him?
No, I mean, I just saw him live many times. I never played with him, unfortunately, but yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I saw him live many times, and I mean, being in the studio with him, he was such a gracious, humble person, nice guy, wasn't afraid to be goofy, I mean, he was the best. And his playing, we didn't do a whole lot of takes, but we did like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 takes. So not a whole lot, rehearsed once or twice, and then went in and I think we took like a week to do it, or something, like 4 days or something. So it was hard work, but he was like, he played a couple of solos that were just, of course, they were mind blowing what he was doing. So I went up to him on one of the breaks. I said, "Man, you are killing me." I'm sitting here listening to this. I just can't believe it. And he said, "Oh, thanks." Just real humble, like.
Yeah, it's a beautiful one.
Oh, it was so great. I just felt like the luckiest guy in the world. He was just such a powerhouse, and humble, and sweet guy, and you know, the amazing musician that he was, composer. And Gil Goldstein did
Yeah,
those charts,
beautiful
and it
arrangements.
was
Yeah, yeah,
great. Oh man.
yeah,
And I got to work with Gil a lot after that, so that
yeah.
was really
Okay, yeah, I love Gil. He's
yeah,
a
yeah.
fantastic,
Oh man, right? He's great.
such an underrated
He's
player
great.
also. And
Right. Well, he does mostly writing. You know,
yeah,
he's writing so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a super player. Did,
Um,
did you go on the road also with that band with the Quindectet or
no,
no?
no,
Right?
I did. They
Yeah.
did a tour of Japan.
Oh yeah.
I didn't do it.
Hmm.
Sadly, I would have loved to have been there. Um, but yeah. Oh, Michael, man, jeez.
How
Somebody.
was how was Paul like, by the way? You mentioned Paul Simon. How was it like to work with
Uh,
him?
well, it was interesting, you know, because he wasn't always sure what he wanted.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I've
we
heard
would
that. Yeah.
rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. And he knew what he didn't want. You know,
Okay.
he'd point to people and say, okay, you lay out, you take it up an octave, you do this, you do that. We'd run it. Okay, so now you put it back where you were, and you change to this instrument, do that. He was just, and again, he had the luxury, I guess, of
Yeah.
having. I mean, I guess it was his own money, so you know, he was just he was burning through some cash. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
He could do that. Yeah. He can do that. I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so which I found a really interesting way to be. You know, we can't always do that, but I guess sometimes the software allows us to do that, right? You
Exactly.
can just
Yeah. Yeah.
and just that inquisitive spirit that he had. I thought that's really great. You know, he wasn't sure what it was, but and when he heard it, he would say, "Okay, that's what I want there. That's what I'm looking for." You know, so that's great
Oh man,
to
if you
always
can do
be
that,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just be inquisitive and be exploratory and try to, you know, don't go with the first thing you put down and say, okay, that's what it is, you know, D7 flat 9.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
what if I put this or turn it upside down and have the bass play the melody? Or just like he really had that real, real search.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was
That's great.
great.
That's great. Yeah.
I wish that thing would have gone longer, because the music was beautiful. We recorded it, and so it's out there somewhere. There's some great,
Oh, really?
great.
I have to find it. Okay.
Yeah, it's called The Cape Man.
Oh, okay. I don't know this one. Okay.
Yeah, it's the music for a Broadway show,
Wow. Okay.
and it was beautiful. Loved every minute of it.
Hmm.
It was like it was like a horn. It was like a I think there were like five guitar players.
Ooh.
There was a guy, two Cuban players that played a trace and a quattro, and then more like sort of traditional guitars, two or three of those guys. The bass player, I forget his name, from Graceland.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Bakiti Kumalo or no?
yeah,
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was there. Let's see. Some of the guitar players from Graceland were there,
Oh, it was a
and
good group. Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing, and they all worked as like a team where you know Paul would orchestrate the guitar thing so beautifully, where you'd hear a little bit of the trace, a little bit of the quattro, a little bit of the standard guitars, and then so there was a standard band with horns and rhythm section, and then I was part of sort of the chamber orchestra that was
Mm.
bassoon, oboe, and English horn,
Mm.
string quartet, or maybe a few more strings than that. So we had all these really light and airy
Yeah.
chamber sounds, but then there was like the Cuban-ish, because there was a story of sorry, it wasn't Cuban, it was Puerto Rican gang in New York.
Mm.
So there was Puerto Rican music that he researched, and
Wow.
with some beautiful,
I have to find it.
beautiful.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience.
You've done a
last
lot
session.
of that, right? You've done
Yeah,
a lot of popish kind of rock, or I mean, I saw the names you played with and the records, and it's like, you know, Bruce Springsteen and some pop acts and uh
yeah,
quite an
Jay-Z.
yeah. How did you end up on those actually?
Just from the knowing the producers, you know,
Ah, okay.
uh, knowing a person who would hire horn sections.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
Actually, that session with Jay-Z was really great because
Oh, really?
I don't remember who the director was, but it was just like 4 or 5 horns overdubbing, and he wanted this to. He was really playing with the technology of
Mm,
recording studio. Relay something down, and then he would have us like layer it, but in different kinds of ways. It wasn't just standard, you know, okay,
yeah.
go up a third and play your part again. He was doing these things with he wanted us to hit notes really hard, and then he would put them in later with notes that we were holding soft underneath it. And
Oh,
it was
wow.
really,
Interesting.
I never got the person's name who was in charge of the actual, there was no music. It was all just, you know, this chord here, you know, and there was a lot of whole notes. It wasn't anything
Sure.
hard to play. But it was really cool.
Quite
But
cool.
that was great. I think we did a concert at Carnegie with him too, or something.
I actually, wow. Okay. Quite cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool, man. Yeah. What about Scofield? I mean, I wanted to ask you about Quiet. How did that session go? That's such a
That
beautiful
was,
one.
oh man, that was great. I mean, Scofield was always one of my, you know, early heroes too. So, you know, to be playing with him. I'll tell you one thing that always strikes me with that session was that, um, you know, he played acoustic
Yeah.
the whole record. So it was on Verve Records,
Yeah.
which a big label back then. I'm not sure if I guess they're still in business. I'm not really sure, but the the head executive producer at Verve is a man named Richard Seidel, and so we had rehearsed a couple days prior or whatever, and then we go into the session, and I knew who Richard Seidel. I knew who he was. I didn't know him personally, but I knew him. And he walks into the he walks into the studio, and I remember he looks in and he's seen Scofield sitting there with an acoustic guitar, and he was in the booth, but I read his lips, and he said he was like incredulous. He said he's playing acoustic, like he didn't even know. He's the head guy, and he didn't know. So I thought, okay, this is interesting how the music business works here.
Oh
You
my
know, he must have thought, oh my God, what are we doing here? You know,
exactly, losing money, you know.
because that his thing was not acoustic, you
No,
know,
exactly.
right?
But that's such a nice record, man. It's like it's
It
such a
is.
beautiful the arrangements and the
And
tunes
he
and
did those arrangements
yeah,
himself, and he really copped a kind of a Gil Evans thing.
yeah,
You know, I think Bob Belden may have been around to fend off some questions or not, but and that's why I ended up on that was because I knew Bob.
mm.
You know,
Yeah, and Steve on bass, Swallow. I mean, so beautiful, like
oh
incredible,
yeah,
really nice
great.
record. Yeah,
I think we did a couple of days, and as I left the studio the first day, I was like, man, just thank you. This is so great. I'll see you tomorrow. You know, it's just like, and again, those guys were the same. They were just so warm and
yeah,
genuine. It's all about the music, and
yeah,
yeah,
beautiful.
it's good times, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Those guys.
when I look at the 90s, man, you've done so many records, it's and been part of so many big bands. It's must have been quite crazy actually when
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still still going on. I mean, there's still lots more big bands to play in
true.
in New York.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like the young players are finishing school and moving to New York, starting groups, and boy, you see some young players that are just got such great stuff together.
yeah,
So it's great when they call to be on their project and live for that. That's why we all moved to New York.
exactly.
To
Yeah,
be on projects that just keep evolving.
yeah. Yeah, which kind of leads me like, what's for you on the schedule for the upcoming months and weeks? I mean, do you have some gigs or recordings coming up or tours?
Well, I don't have any tours or any big recordings coming up, but I'm where I teach up at the Eastman School. They're doing a concert of the Electric Miles stuff.
Oh, well, beautiful.
Early February. And the student band is going to play those, which is a big honor. So I'm looking forward to. I'm going to work with them a little bit, but their director Christine Jensen is doing all that with them. But that's really going to be interesting to hear some students play it. We're very good. And then early March, I'm working on a studio orchestra piece for. I'm writing an arrangement for a singer to sing with, it's a jazz ensemble with strings and woodwinds and percussion and everything. So I'm spending a lot of time doing that. And I'm really looking forward to that. It's my first time to write for a studio orchestra. And
oh, sure, man.
Yeah, right. I mean, I can't wait.
That's a beast. Yeah.
Yeah. He said a beast?
That's a beast. Yeah. It's like.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. And I have one other project that I'm doing, just my own writing skills. I'm kind of writing out some standards, kind of in the style of Birth of the Cool.
Okay.
Like a horn group.
Beautiful.
We're just doing a concert up in Rochester at the school in February as well. So I'm kind of tweaking those, and because I feel like the arranging that I learned in school and then the arranging I've done with the Miles projects, I feel like I wanted to kind of go back and dig up the real fundamentals of really how to put five notes together, 5 horn notes together, and really make it. So I'm kind of getting some of the basics that I missed, because the Miles stuff doesn't really have that intricacies.
It's different.
So.
Beautiful.
I'm really excited about that. And then there's a couple of tunes that are going to have a vocalist. So I'm writing for her to sing with this 5 horn group. So a lot of writing.
A lot of writing. That's nice. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm trying to get more of that going on.
Fantastic.
It's interesting. I just did something for the great bass player John Patitucci.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Back in December, and he's trying to focus on writing. So it's like I think a thing that people that are primarily players, seems like at some point in your life you just get this bug that you have to, and you got it right.
I mean, if I didn't have to live, I would write a lot. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, we all have to teach. I mean, I teach as well, and so. But it's nice. It's time for everything. It's that's how it should be. Otherwise we would go crazy, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Staring in the lead sheets and yeah. But beautiful, yeah. Fantastic, man. Charles, thanks for sharing some of these thoughts. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
I'm honored that you reached out. I've seen some of your other people that you've been with, and
yeah, I love doing this.
I
love doing this.
Yeah.
It's just the amount of records I have at home. I just go through records and I'm like, shit, okay. Damn, okay. Oh, I'll send you an email. Let's see, and so beautiful.
Exactly.
So much music, but thanks again. And if you're going to be in Europe, drop me a line or something, and we get together for a beer or dinner or whatever, or play or.
Yeah. And where are you again?
I'm in Slovenia, which is like, I'm in a small town, like 2 hours south of Vienna. So.
Okay.
Close to Budapest, Vienna, Zagreb, kind of.
Okay. Oh yeah. All right. Yeah, I haven't been to Europe in a few years. I'm not, not playing with Maria anymore.
Yeah.
She's always over there, so.
Exactly. Yeah.
And primarily playing in the States, so. But,
yeah,
I'll definitely reach out.
Yeah, hopefully if you make it. Yeah, Definitely. If I come, I'll drop you a line so we get together. Super. Sir,
Thanks,
thank you so
man.
much. I'll let you
Nice
know
to
when,
chat.
when this is out, I'll send you a link and everything. So
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
cool.
Thanks.
Thanks, Charles. Bye.
Have a good one, man.
You too. Ciao. Ciao.
Dr. Jazz.